love that term, yippies. He made a poster in the 1950s with just 2 words on it. Fuck communism. He's the only person in the world ever to win awards from both Playboy and the Feminist Party Media Workshop. So there it is. We'd like to invite Mr. Paul Krassner to the podium.
Thank you. First, I want to quash a rumor that's been going around that the Society for Ethical Culture was founded by Tom DeLay. Not true. And I don't know if you saw George Bush's speech today, where he boasted that since 9/11, 10 attacks have been prevented by Al-Qaeda, which of course was a signal to Al-Qaeda today, so that if you haven't heard, there is a new level of alert, a higher alert on the New York subways. Did anybody come by subway today? Oh, did you feel safer because there was a green alert or whatever color it was? I think the speech was written by Karen Hughes, who first was the first one to teach Bush that he shouldn't call terrorists folks. In terms of satire, it comes from the contradictions and the hypocrisy, and a recent example of that is after Hurricane Katrina, well, first of all, the federal government has always, in cases like medical marijuana in California and dying with dignity in Oregon, has said, well, federal law supersedes these state referenda, and states' rights, it's not just for racists anymore. But after Katrina, they started saying, oh, no, it's the states, it's the local, because they're just covering their asses. Between the government and the corporations and the military and organized religion, there are so many asses being covered across America now that it looks like a Christo art project. But speaking of medical marijuana is a good example of the hypocrisy, because the Partnership for a Drug-Free America was funded and founded originally by the alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceutical companies. And so, because they don't want any competition, because, well, first of all, there are all these commercials on TV for pharmaceutical prescriptions, which they tell you to ask your doctor if such and such a drug is right for you. I have a list of about 15 prescription drugs now. I save them up because I don't want to keep bothering my doctor. But all of them have side effects that are worse than what they're supposed to cure. So, if you get Lipitor for your cholesterol, one of the side effects, I think, is anal leakage. If you take Prozac for depression, one of the effects is suicidal impulses. My favorite is Provocol, which promises that it will prevent your first heart attack and prevent your second heart attack, which means then that when you have your first heart attack, you'll think it's really your third. But they say that, well, medical marijuana, the movement is just to serve as a wedge for the decriminalization of all marijuana, and they say, and then it'll become out of control, and because they're worried, High Times magazine once had a questionnaire. One of the questions was, is it possible to smoke too much pot? And one of the readers sent in, he said, I don't understand the question. But as an unbeliever, it's interesting to me to see how much killing is done in the name of this deity that I don't believe in. I mean, to me, Walt Disney was an intelligent designer. Incidentally, for those of you who remember the Disneyland Memorial Orgy I published in 1967, it's been digitally colored and is available now on my website, paulkrassner.com. Not to be confused with Bush's website, which is crony.com. And so when you think of the administration, you know, I mean, Bush and Cheney, it's long been known that Cheney is a ventriloquist, and which is why he talks out of the side of his mouth like this. Never quite got the craft down. Donald Rumsfeld, I have imaginary dialogues with these people. So I would say to Donald Rumsfeld, well, you know, at Guantanamo Bay, the prisoners aren't allowed to be in touch with their lawyers, let alone their families, and they're there in these cages, and they have to spin. And he says, you don't understand. I mean, he always asks questions himself, you know. Am I a mean-spirited prick? Well, yes, that's a very subjective question, you know. So I said to Rumsfeld, you know, how can you call this freedom when look what you're doing to these prisoners who haven't even been charged with anything specifically? And he said, well, you know, they have more freedom than a lot of people in America. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they can go to Cuba and you can't. I remember when Bill Clinton was president and he promised that he would end the ban of gays in the military. I don't know why gays would want to be in the military. I don't know why heteros would want to be in the military, or transsexuals, or bisexuals. But in any case, he was dissuaded from doing it by Colin Powell. Then we had the first African-American head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he was saying the men in the barracks would feel uncomfortable if a gay man slept in the same barracks with them. And now, Colin Powell, of course, came from a military family, so I would say to him, look, General Powell, isn't this the same thing they used to say about blacks, that it would make the men in the barracks uncomfortable if a black man slept in the same barracks? And Colin Powell explained, he said, well, we never told anybody we were black. So this was the forerunner of the don't ask, don't tell policy. So now, you know, with the terrorist threat, people don't really get into the minds of the terrorists because, you know, we've all, aside from any grievances they have, they're promised that as martyrs they'll go to Nirvana and meet 72 virgins, and also have orgasms that last 600 years. It's impossible to conceive. With my luck, at 150 years, I would have a premature ejaculation. Damn. But it's a matter of... by the way, if you watch the news programs, have you noticed that all of these programs are sponsored by Viagra or one of those erectile dysfunction drugs? And I mean, I got an erection just from the possibility that Karl Rove might be indicted. But I'm not boasting now, but I don't have any problems with getting an erection. My only problem is that at my age, I'm afraid that it might be rigor mortis setting in on the installment plan. So I'm going to end now because there are others here among us 5 white geezers who have satirical insights to share with. Thank you.